Thanks for being here. I know all of you in the media have heard politicians for years, all of us, talking about things we'd like to do or that should be done or that we're going to do next year. We have a situation now that's just too serious to continue to handle that way. It's not an exaggeration to say our country is on the edge of a financial cliff. With the level of debt we have at $12 trillion now, the President's budget projects another $1.6 trillion this year. And with the entitlements coming due, we're looking at $100 trillion of unfunded liability. You know, Moody says our AAA rating is at risk if the growth in the budget does not reach the level that's projected, which is very optimistic growth projections. We've got a lot of people in town this week from all over the world for the National Prayer Breakfast, and I've had a chance to talk to a lot of them. And there is growing concern around the world about our ability to address our debt and what that would do to our economy and our military strength, and what that could do to the economic and military stability of the world. This is probably the biggest issue that we have to address. And probably everyone in Congress, particularly here in the Senate and both parties, continue to talk about it as an issue. Spending, borrowing, debt, what that will do to our country. But even in talking about a freeze, that's next year. We're going to continue to spend this year. What we're doing here today is to try to challenge everyone in the Senate, Republican and Democrat, to join us in those steps that we can take in the short term as well as in the long term to address our growing deficit. We have two bills that we'll be talking about today. One is a small step, in a sense. It's a moratorium on earmarks. It's a bill that was introduced before and co-sponsored by Barack Obama, and we voted on, but it did not pass in the Senate. But folks, on one hand, we can't say our country is in dire straits, and on the other hand, say I need $1 million for my local museum. And if we have 535 congressmen and senators who still want their earmarks and are not willing to take even a one-year time out, then we have a huge problem addressing our debt. This is something we can do immediately. We're first looking at who co-sponsors it. But the bigger long-term step is to put the structural discipline in place here in the Senate and the Congress as a whole that we have to make tough decisions. If we have a balanced budget requirement, then everything we propose that increases spending will have to be matched by a proposal to cut it. This is very ambitious, but the fact is even if we balance our budget, we're going to be looking at probably $20 trillion in debt by the time that actually is ratified by the states. So these two bills will show you who is serious in the Senate about our debt and who is willing to do what they can, at least by co-sponsoring this bill, to take the small steps in the short term and the big steps. We're going to be continuing on our websites and here to promote those who co-sponsor. And we've got the first list today that we'll pass out to you. And we're just starting to promote it, but that is how we're going to keep track of who's serious and who gets the message from the American people. I want to turn it now over to one of our co-sponsors, a champion against earmarks for years, Senator John McCain.
I thank Senator DeMint for his leadership, along with Senator Coburn and Senator Graham and Senator LeMieux and many others who will be joining us. The time has come for us to listen to the American people. Obviously, a deaf ear has been turned to the American people. This morning, I found out that we're going to spend $2.5 million of taxpayers' money for a 30-second ad during the Super Bowl to promote the census. You know, we have been holding a census every 10 years for a long, long time. And now we're going to take $2.5 million to buy a 30-second ad during the Super Bowl. While American families are tightening their belts, they're losing their homes, and I represent a state that 48% of the home loan mortgages are underwater. and we're going to spend $2.5 million of their money. How many homes could have been prevented from being foreclosed in Phoenix, Arizona with this $2.5 million? President Obama, during his campaign, stated unequivocally that they would go line by line and eliminate the waste and unnecessary spending. We went to the floor day after day with the recommendations from the White House for cutting unnecessary and unneeded programs, and those amendments were voted down time after time, not only by Democrats but by Republicans as well. It's shameful. Now the president says he's going to have a spending freeze next year, and in the very next breath proposes $100 billion in new spending called a jobs bill. Not a stimulus bill, but a jobs bill. It's out of control. Now, back a number of years ago, in compliance with the contract with America, the United States Senate came within one vote to approval of a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution to begin that process. We need to have that vote again. Now, in a little straight talk, Republicans lost the elections in 2002 and 2008 for a variety of reasons. One of them may have been the quality of their presidential nominee. I will allow others to make that judgment. But the point is that we betrayed the fiscal conservatives in this country when we let spending get completely out of control, and that's a fact. And we're only going to regain the confidence of the American people when we get spending under control. There's a long list we go through all the time: Woodstock film festivals, study Maine lobster. The list continues on, and Americans are outraged about it. So finally, let me say that Americans are sick and tired of the way we're doing business in Washington. They want us to stop the earmarking, which is a very important part of this. The other important part, obviously, is they want a balanced budget. Every family in America has to balance their budget. Every business does, and it's time that the Congress of the United States and the administration did as well. I want to thank Senator DeMint again for his leadership, and this is an issue whose time has come.
Lindsay?
I'm the balanced budget amendment guy. These guys have really been leading the charge on earmark reform, much to the dismay of some of their colleagues. And I've always said that I don't object to members of the Congress being able to direct how money could be spent in their state, as long as it's transparent. And the problem is that as we direct that money to our state, the top line grows. It's never within the pie, it always grows the pie. So taking a time out on earmarking, I think, would be good to just show the American people that, you know, we're not totally living on a different planet than you are. And I think a lot of people at home think we're not just in the same country anymore. How many businesses are having to fire people or lay people off, or having to really either go out of the business or rearrange the family budget just to make the next month's payment? None of us have to do that up here. We all talk. Now let me tell you, it is a bipartisan problem. I voted for the balanced budget amendment when I was in the House as the contract with America, and it failed, as John said, by one vote. But in 1997, when we passed the balanced budget agreement, when Republicans came together with President Clinton, and for several years we had a balanced budget. We didn't run deficits. But what happened over time is the old ways crept back in. Republicans started increasing committee spending. That was the first break. Then the Medicare reductions got to be uncomfortable with doctors and hospitals, and they started complaining, and we started forgiving some of the entitlement reforms. And the next thing you know, when the economy turns down, our spending got out of control. So this amendment is an institutional check and balance that's been missing far too long. There are many states, including our state of South Carolina, that has a balanced budget requirement. They can't leave Columbia until the books are balanced. If you oppose this, great. I'm not saying that we're just absolutely right on everything, but you got to show me and others how we balance the budget without the Constitution making us do it. I've got absolutely no confidence in either party to balance the budget unless we have to. And can you imagine what would happen if the law required us to do it before we left town? You know what would happen? We'd be making some really hard decisions, and earmarking would stop. If you want earmark reform, require a balanced budget. We would be making some hard decisions that would put us in jeopardy of losing our jobs. I think that's the consequences of a balanced budget agreement by some. But here's what I think. I think we'd get applauded. I think if we sat down and balanced the books, no matter who we had to ask to sacrifice, the public would applaud us and support us. Right now, you can, under the amendment, you can waive the balanced budget requirement if we're at war or there's a national security threat involving military action, like we're in today. Under the amendment, the requirement to balance the budget in the times we live in could be waived by the Congress by a simple majority vote. And that might make some sense. So this is not a draconian amendment that ignores reality. To raise taxes, you can do it, but you got to get a supermajority vote because it's so easy for politicians to just take money. It's very hard for politicians to say no. One final thought. A lot of people say in the political science world that democracies over time are doomed to fail because we, the people, lose the ability to say no to ourselves. That we'll elect folks and they'll go to Congress and we'll be making demands on our politicians and complaining at the same time, and you'll wake up one day and lose your AAA credit rating. I have a little more optimistic view of America than that. I think the only reason we're in such dire straits is not because we, the people, want this excessive spending, is because the institution itself is set up to serve a few, not the many. And the special interests run this place. And that's where you get the earmark abuse. A constitutional balanced budget amendment would be welcome news to the average American taxpayer who is going through turmoil in their business and personal lives. It would make your government more responsible, and it is the only hope I see, ladies and gentlemen, to ever achieve a sustainable balanced budget for the rest of my life. A constitutional amendment making us do it, not talking about doing it.
George?
I want to thank Senator DeMint, Senator McCain, and Senator Graham for their leadership on this issue. I am new to the United States Senate. My experience is in state government. And being new here, I think the normal still seems normal and the bizarre still seems bizarre. And I have fresh eyes to look at this. State governments around the country, including Florida, balance their budgets. In tough economic times like these, you make cuts. Governors around the country have the line item veto. Those balanced budgets work. There are sacrifices, there are cuts, but they work. No one is in charge of the budget in Washington, D.C. The President sends it over, the Congress looks at it, it adds to it, but no one is responsible for making the difficult decisions that families make, that businesses make, and even that state governments make. In this current budget that the President proposes, we have $2.2 billion in revenue to spend. But the budget proposes $3.8 billion in spending. This would be like a family in Ocala, Florida, who makes $22,000 a year, deciding that they're going to spend $38,000 a year. And it's not the first year they've done it. They've been doing it for 30 years. This system is unsustainable. With more than $12 trillion in debt, the future of our country is at stake. We need a balanced budget amendment so people in this Congress will make the tough decisions to prolong the future of our country. And everything is going to get cut if we do it. And it's going to be painful. But I guarantee you that we can cut the agencies of government and cut them by 20% even, maybe 30%, and if done right, not affect the services that are provided to the American people, because no one has ever tried to do it in recent memory. And if you don't go through that exercise, you can't make things more efficient. I applaud this effort on earmarks. Let me tell you why I think earmarks are a problem. They're not just a problem for the amount of the budget that they are, because it's not a huge amount. They are a problem because they are the enabler. In my short time here, I have seen that if you ask for a project and you bring it back for your home state, then when the budget that they bring before you on a particular appropriations bill is 10, 15, 20, 25% more than last year, you can't vote against it, or you'll never get another project again. So I haven't done earmarks since I've been here, and I made a decision last month not to do them for the rest of the time I'm here, because the nation is in dire financial straits. I've got 3 small boys, Max, Taylor, and Chase, who are 6, 4, and 2, and we've got a baby coming in March. and I worry about their future. Now, I know we can fix this problem. The American people understand it, and through the leadership of these men that stand beside me, we can make this happen. But it's going to take some fortitude, and it's going to take some courage to do the right thing. And I think both of these things are essential if we're going to have a successful future for this country. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, George.